Hello everybody, welcome back to another one of our weekly Vinland Saga videos, and today we're going to talk all about episode 20, Crown. If you can't tell, I'm a little bit pissed off by something that happens in this week's episode, but I'm going to save that because before I really dig into that, we gotta go ahead and give a big thank you to those of you who shared last week's video over on Twitter. At Faye0011, at Nacho Gashardo, and at AlexDrift11. Thanks for sharing last week's Vinland Saga video, you three, and if you watching would like to have your name shouted out in next week's Vinland Saga video, then be sure to share this video around on the internet, and then tag me at JoJo Talks Too Much over on Twitter, and I will be sure to shout your name out in next week's video. Okay, so the question you might be asking yourself is, what about the episode made you upset, JoJo? Are you actually mad, or are you like kayfabe mad? I'm kayfabe mad, but I'm also kind of actually mad. The reason why I am upset, the reason why I am angry so. Some of you guys may know that Bjorn is my favorite character on the show. I love Bjorn, he's my husbando, he's the man, I love him to pieces, and I thought him getting stabbed by Atli was like too quick, and then I was like, there's no way he's gonna die there, and Canute, or however they say that they pronounce his name, because I keep hearing it pronounced different ways. And Prince Canute basically says like, hey, no, treat him quickly before he dies. And so I assumed that Bjorn would get patched up and everything would be okay. And in this episode, we don't see the man for the entire episode, and I'm thinking like, where's Bjorn? Show Bjorn. Where is he? Where's my boy? And then in a off-screen, not only off-screen, an offhanded comment from Aslad to Atli, because Atli says like, hey man, I really hope Bjorn's okay. And Aslad says, yeah, Bjorn's not gonna last much longer. The wounds hit his intestines. And I feel like that's it. Maybe he heals up. I don't know. I really feel like that's it. And I am kayfabe mad. Like in actuality, I do kind of dig that they're gonna kill one of the bigger characters off in such a random way. It reminds me of a certain character from Game of Thrones in the books, and even then that character doesn't necessarily die, but they are affected by a random just illness, like an infection gets them, quote unquote gets them. And that I do dig that they are showing like, hey, sometimes it's not just dying in battle, sometimes you get infected and die, like, and that sucks. But did it have to be Bjorn? Like, did it really have to be Bjorn of all characters? Couldn't it have been like Willibald or whatever his name is? Although I wouldn't want it to be Will either. I like Will, but like still, like, couldn't it have been Atli or his stupid brother? Couldn't it have been Thorgrim? Nobody likes Thorgrim. He could have died from an infection. That would have been fine. I'm deflated, honestly. Like the whole episode, I was like, "Where's Bjorn? Where's Bjorn?" And like, I know I should take the fanboy out of it, right? Like I shouldn't be upset that they're gonna kill off Bjorn, because again, if I look at it strictly creatively, it's actually a really smart decision to show that not everybody dies in battle. Some people die in less thematic ways, you know, like some people get picked off in a way that is not very heroic, and that's fair because these aren't really heroic figures, and war doesn't really have many heroes, and that's fair. And we've been showing in Vinland Saga that this is a much more real sort of take. There's definitely like fantastical elements, and we even see one in this episode where we actually see steam come off Aslad because he's so mad. But that's more of an aesthetic choice, you know, like steam wasn't actually coming off Aslad in the story of that world. It was just in a visual sense, we saw it like metaphorically. And so you do have those sort of fantastical elements as though this is a story being passed down. But at the same time, it is very real in other aspects. So Bjorn getting stabbed and getting infected, it feels very real. But again, you guys don't come to me for like analytical videos, do you? You come to hear me fanboy and freak out over different episodes. And right now I'm not freaking out. Right now I'm honestly, and when I say disappointed, because I am disappointed, but I'm not like disappointed because like, oh, the show has poor writing. It's more that I'm sad that a character I like is going. In the same way you'd be upset about a Game of Thrones character from seasons 1 through 4 going. You know what I mean? Where like you like the show, and just because your favorite character gets axed off doesn't mean you suddenly dislike the show. It just means you're disappointed that that character is gone. And while no, we haven't seen a body, and I mean like, hey, don't count the man out, okay? Bjorn's a tough SOB. He might actually pull through. He's a tough son of a bitch. I have no idea. Maybe he'll be fine. But at the same time, the way it was worded and the tone of that scene makes me really think that, yeah, Bjorn's probably not going to make it. And I'm just preparing myself mentally for it. I already lost a number of husbandos this year. I'm probably going to lose Bjorn. I have to be okay with that. We have to move on. And when we look outside of Bjorn, there's a number of unexpected reunions in this week's episode. Well, I shouldn't say unexpected for us. We knew that these characters would be reunited, but it's unexpected for the people on the receiving end, quote unquote, of the reunions. Namely, we see the reunion with Floki, and then we later see the reunion with the king. King Sven, I believe his name is. And the reunion with the king is 10 times more interesting, because the reunion with Floki is like, yeah, well-deserved, screw that guy. Like, because they straight up basically just walk, not even walk, they waltz right by this dude. Like Floki's a punk, and I will never, ever forgive what Floki did. Like, Floki is the reason Thor's is dead. And I do love that they have that shot of when, like, Floki standing there shocked by the prince's sudden shift in character. And as everybody passes, the camera purposely pulls in, and you see Floki looking shocked, and Thorfinn walks by. Now, these characters don't know each other, at least not to my knowledge. So these characters may not either, maybe Floki knows Thorfinn and Thorfinn knows Floki, but from what I remember, they don't. Like, maybe they met in passing when Floki came to get Thor's. But these characters don't know what the other one has done, like, since Thor's died, right? They don't know what the other one has done. And seeing those two cross paths, I was like, ooh, get him! But, like, of course, he's not going to just, like, turn around and stab Floki, right? Because he doesn't know. But if he did, though, that meeting would have been real different. And Floki is a character I have a hard time pinning down, because the show really does treat Floki almost like... Floki is a flunky, the way the show treats him. But I have a feeling, like, maybe he's actually, like, quite skilled. Because he is like a Joms Viking, so he should be quite skilled, but I haven't seen him really do anything that skilled, at least not for a long time. So I'd be curious. There's a couple characters like Floki. There's a few characters who we haven't heard from in a while that we, again, do see here, like Leif and the King, and there's that dude with the chain. When's that guy with the chain coming back? Because that guy was badass, but I don't know. It's very interesting, the reunion with Floki and the King and all that, because... Again, it doesn't quite go the way that they expect. Like, it goes about what we expect, but their reactions are what makes it very interesting. Floki is just absolutely baffled. Like, he refuses to believe that Thorkel is on Canute's side, and he refuses to believe that the prince is even alive to begin with. And when he sees him, he's absolutely taken aback by how much the prince is like, just get out of our way. Do you normally greet people with spears? Come on, what's the matter with you? Because that's not the prince that he knew. The prince that he knew was this little pushover. So to see him suddenly, like, on his A game and like brushing aside Floki, it was genuinely really cool. And that's not even getting to the stuff with the king, because I got some thoughts for that. But I want to talk about the prince before we actually meet the king, and that's when the prince looks up at the church, right? He sees the cross on top of the church, and he says, like right now, God is looking down on us, and I wonder what he's thinking about us. I'll never forgive him. And I was like, oh boy. Like, the prince, we knew he truly has become the prince that was promised. Like, we knew that this man had a plan. He's the man with a plan. But we actually fully hear him elaborate on said plan, and that's that he's like, you know what? I'm gonna make a kingdom, a paradise of our own here on earth. And when I cross over, when God takes me, I will tell him that I do not need his paradise. I do not need his kingdom. Paradise is on earth. That I'm gonna make this plane our paradise, and even if I have to become a devil to do so. And I was like, what? He's truly becoming like the demon of Denmark right now. That's got to be the thumbnail or something. I don't know, but like, yeah, like he's truly coming into his own, and the prince went from like one of my least favorite characters on the show, immediately skyrocketing up the list of my favorite characters. The prince is on his friggin' A game. I'm so impressed with the prince lately. Dude's been just a fucking joy to see on screen. And that joy continues when we get the reunion with King Sven, and we see like immediately, right? The group, it's a trio. It's well, it should have been a quartet, but they send Thorkel away. Thorkel and his buddy, they're like, go party and befriend everybody. And Thorkel's like, I knew joining with you was a good idea, which I thought was a genuinely really funny scene, and perfect use of Thorkel, by the way. And the prince stumbles into the meeting room, like the throne room with the king. And it's him, Askeladd, and Thorfinn. And immediately all three are like, yeah, this is a trap. Like, because I'm like, even when you look at that throne room, I'm like, yeah, that's a trap, my dudes. Like, you could just tell, like, they're gonna ambush you. This is definitely a setup. This is a trap right here. And I like that, even though we have that thought, and you would expect the prince to be like, oh man, we're in trouble. The prince is like, don't draw your swords. If you draw your swords, we lose. Whoever draws their swords first, that's who's gonna lose this situation. So we're gonna talk our way out of this. And I was like, damn, the prince on his friggin' A game. Like I've been saying, the prince is like absolutely on his A game. And we have the meeting with the king, and the king also is like, he's taken aback, but doesn't show it physically. You know, like he's not like whoa, like Floki is like whoa. It's like he has like the anime reaction, but the king is sort of like, okay, I was not expecting this, but that's fine. I don't serve you, and even though you're my son, I don't really care about you. I care about this crown. And I don't care if you're suddenly really skilled and like if you're suddenly really bloodthirsty. This crown is what matters. And like the king is very much like, okay. Like he's shocked, but he's not like he doesn't show it like physically on his face. Speaking of his face though, my god, dude is fugly. Like even Askeladd says like he looks tired, which is the nice way of saying that dude is ugly. I mean, to be fair though, being the king probably puts a couple years on the face. Like probably puts some stress, like probably gives you some gray hairs out of stress. So like I get it, but damn. And I suppose like of the meeting with the king, it is interesting to see father versus son in that moment. However, the moment that really got me, and I'm sure the moment that really got a lot of you, is Askeladd stepping up, basically becoming the Onion Knight. Lots of Game of Thrones references today, sorry about that. But basically becoming the Onion Knight, my favorite Game of Thrones character, by the way. And basically taking up that sort of advisor role of being like, wait, like the guy who's quick with his words and wiser than he looks. And Askeladd just says like, hey, it wouldn't make sense to kill us now, especially after everything Prince Canute has done. Killing us would only bring further questions. I urge you to reassess your decision. And the king is like, okay, so you look quite smart, blah, blah, blah. And he basically insults this man's mom, saying like, oh, you must be like a mistress. No, your mom was probably, like your father was probably just like, probably passed you on to some slave, didn't he? And I was like, what a son of a bitch. But then I thought I was mad by that. And then Thorfinn looks down and sees Askeladd essentially letting steam off of himself because of how damn angry he was. And this is where I tie back to talk about the art a little bit, and that the art visually, the visual storytelling feels as though this is a story being told to like a kid or something, like a folk tale passed down. Like, and then Askeladd's anger was so raw, steam came off his very skin. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's exaggerated. It still feels real, like I said with the whole Bjorn thing, but it still has that element of folktale to it. So seeing Askeladd steaming with rage, you know it wasn't actual steam coming off the man, but it did accentuate his anger and his rage, and it really gave you the vibe that, like, you don't talk bad about Askeladd's mom. Like, that's a sore spot for this man. And seeing that hate manifest was really freaking cool and really intimidating. I like, too, that it's Thorfinn who sees this. Like, Thorfinn's the one who notices. The king and the prince don't notice. Thorfinn does, because Thorfinn's obviously spent the most time with Askeladd, so he knows that this is irregular for him to be showing that level of anger. It's not common. And even for us, like, we know, like, as soon as we see, like, his hand clench and like, you notice the steam come off almost immediately, you're like, something's up. Like, this is not our boy. Something's gotten into him. I don't know what it is, but he's pissed. And you can tell, like, you could just tell how angry he was. I just thought that whole meeting with the king is probably the best scene of the episode and one of the better scenes in the past couple episodes, which is saying something, because this show has had some seriously killer episodes lately. I'm talking like A to S tier episodes. If you've been watching, you know that. So for me to say like that, this scene is one of the best. I should say the best verbal. Like one of the best verbal bouts in the show thus far. That's saying something, because I really think they nailed it. The direction of the scene was just perfection. And then we get to the whole party scene, and as I said before, there's that whole bit with Willibard and him shaving and cutting his hair. I was with the rest of the group. I really did not connect who that was until they did like the bink bink bink, like flashing between his current self and his old self, the version that we knew him as, and you see the whole group be like, there's no way. But then when you think about it, it's like, he did drink, they say he drank 57 beers and didn't even show it. He had 57 pints, no reaction. They come in pints, and he gave no reaction. So of course it was Will. Of course, it couldn't have been anybody else. The party scene, I wrote down the party and then / the parting of the ways. A lot of Lord of the Rings references today as well. But it's, because it does serve two purposes, because it does serve as like a party to celebrate like the victory essentially of Canute, like arriving, he's alive, and they have this new group of like a mixture of the old and new characters. But it's also a way to say goodbye to a couple characters. It's a way to say goodbye to Atli and Torgrim. And I'm not the biggest Torgrim guy, but I did like Atli, even though Atli essentially killed my husbando. But still, Atli as a character, I really enjoyed. And I, like, especially the further into the show we got, the more character he got. And I really liked Atli. Honestly, he was the one I felt like, of the Vikings, I could relate the most to Atli. He just didn't seem like a real Viking type. And Askeladd even says to him, promise me, I'll give you this, but you have to promise me that you will never pick up a sword again in your life. It doesn't suit you. And if I see you on the battlefield, I will kill you, even if we're on the same side. And that scene really got to me. And that farewell really got to me too, because I know Askeladd says, like, I hate you. Like, I hate you Vikings. I can't stand you. I used you. I don't care about you. That, to me, I'm sure there's truth in there. In fact, I'm sure a lot of it's truth. But I kind of, like, I know on some level, some deep, deep level, at least this is what I saw, he did care. He wouldn't have known that about Atli. He wouldn't have noticed that about Atli. And he wouldn't have cared to tell Atli not to pick up a sword again if on some level he didn't care at least like 1%, like 1.00% cared about this character. And of course, it also serves as a farewell to Bjorn. Not okay with that. But again, who knows? Maybe Bjorn's gonna be totally fine. I have no clue. I really don't think so. The way that the tone of that scene hinted that like Bjorn's gonna die. Like, listen, Vinland Saga, all I'm asking here, this is really all I'm asking here. If you're gonna punk out Bjorn like this, again, I get it, thematically, the writing, it's superb, but it just hurts me. Please don't just, like, remove him out of the show off screen. At least show this man, give this man one final goodbye. Don't let it be, like, an offhanded line. He meant a lot to the show. I hope Bjorn gets, like, a big moment. If you're a manga fan and you spoil it, I will actually hurt you. Well, in fairness, the manga fans on Vinland Saga haven't spoiled actually anything, now that I think about it. They're, like, the one manga group that hasn't even given me hints, which I really appreciate. Don't hint. Don't tell me anything. I really appreciate that. But speaking of the manga, and I'm sure this is, like, you manga fans already know what I'm going to say, and I figured may as well talk about this at the end. Apparently, and I don't know how true this is, like, I did see the tweet from one of the creators, so I don't super know if like, maybe it was mistranslated or whatever, but apparently Vinland Saga is going to be going off book, so it's going to be pulling us a Game of Thrones essentially, and go a little bit off book, and maybe tell some story, like side stories, or maybe just go off and tell its own story entirely. I'm not too sure. However, the fact that it is going off the beaten path and away from the books does have a lot of manga fans pretty upset, and I do respect that. However, again, as an anime guy, I don't really care if it follows the manga or not. I just care if it tells a good story. So I'm sure some folks will want me to comment on the fact that it's deviating from the manga. Honestly, I don't really care. As long as the story continues to be good, is good for me. And on that note, everybody, I'm gonna go ahead and give this episode an A. I almost gave it a B because of the whole Bjorn thing. And again, it's not poor writing, it's just me being a fanboy. I straight up almost gave it a B because I'm that upset about Bjorn. We'll see what happens next week. And on that note, everybody, that's going to wrap up today's video. But before we take off, I want to give a big shout out to the good folks over on Patreon, namely those in the Earl Grey tier: Calvin Atkinson, Crowbar of Irony, Dominic, Urza, Genkotaku, No For Nothing, Maria Teresa, Mirth Mouser, Omner Garamond, Cell, Shadow Creative, Sipco Games, Somastan, Steven, Tristan, Verdon, and Westbourne Eastbred. A huge thank you to those of you who support the channel over on Patreon, and if you too would like to join the T Squadron, then be sure to check out that first link in the description to check out our Patreon page, see all the cool rewards you can get over there, as well as access to our Patreon exclusive Discord. Thanks once again for checking out today's video, everybody. If you enjoyed it, then you've probably been on the internet long enough to know what to do already, so I ain't gonna tell you, but I will say that it is appreciated. And if you are feeling stressed out today, then you go have yourself a warm cup of tea, and I will talk to you all again real soon.